Wake up, you redhead people. It's time so in control of you. Such little time for money. When will you see the real truth? We can be more than ever.
Good morning. Bonjour, buenos dias. Excellencies, honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen, leaders in conservation and protected areas management, dear friends, if I may, welcome to the closing plenary of the IUCN World Parks Congress 2014. First and foremost, allow me to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting, the Wangal and Buramatagal people of the Eora Nation, and to pay respects to the elders past and present, and extend that respect to other Aboriginal people present. I know that this has been a very busy week for all of us. Do you know that, in fact, we've had more than 6,000 people registered for the Congress and millions watching us on YouTube and on Twitter. So that's amazing. We have had lots of discussions, lots of learning, lots of meetings, very little sleep, and continued passion for parks, people, and our planet, our only home. So did you have a good Congress? Thank you, great. But we're not quite finished yet. When we set out for this Congress, we wanted it to come out with a shared vision and concrete commitments that would feed into the promise of Sydney and the decade ahead. And I'm delighted that we already heard that nearly 100 concrete commitments of action have been made by governments, intergovernmental organizations, individuals, non-governmental organizations, from places as far and wide as Gabon, Quebec, Peru, and many, many others. And we have more. That is great. And we have more in store for today. So I now have the honor to give the floor to His Excellency, Eri Rajanowari Mampiananina. Pardon, Monsieur le Président. Let me try one more time. You have such a beautiful name. The President Rajawanari Mampianina of Madagascar. Merci. Monsieur le Président, je vous invite à prendre la parole. Et je vous admire pour votre patience avec ma prononciation. I admire the President for his gracious acceptance of our pronunciation of his beautiful name.
Je peux vous assurer, Madame le Directeur Général, que vous avez très très bien prononcé mon nom, donc félicitations.
Merci.
Excellences, Mesdames, Messieurs, permettez-moi de vous exprimer tout le plaisir que je ressens d'être présent parmi vous en ce moment historique et d'adresser nos remerciements au gouvernement et au peuple australien pour l'accueil qui nous a été réservé dans cette magnifique ville de Sydney. Ma présence à ces assises et la participation massive des représentants de Madagascar aux discussions qui se sont tenues depuis une semaine soulignent, s'il en était besoin, l'importance que notre pays attache à la préservation de notre capital naturel, représenté essentiellement dans notre système d'air protégé. En 2003, lors du précédent congrès mondial des parcs, Madagascar a annoncé au monde la décision de tripler la superficie des aires protégées du pays. Le chemin parcouru depuis pour faire de cet engagement une réalité est tout simplement impressionnant. Nous l'avons réalisé et Madagascar a pu bénéficier du soutien indéfectible de l'IUCN et de tous nos partenaires ici présents dans la mise en œuvre de ce que nous avons convenu d'appeler la vision d'Urban. Et pour cela, je vous exprime toute notre gratitude. Je veux vous assurer aujourd'hui que cette détermination et cet engagement sont intacts. Comme vous avez pu le constater à travers les interventions et les présentations de nos représentants tout au long de la semaine. Conscient du rôle crucial joué par notre biodiversité et de nos aires protégées pour notre avenir et celui des générations futures, j'ai pris la décision de placer la conservation du capital naturel au cœur de notre stratégie de développement durable. Cette stratégie est d'ailleurs définie et formulée dans le plan national de développement récemment élaboré. Je ne sous-estime pas pour autant les difficultés qui nous attendent sur la voie de la croissance et du développement durable, surtout après 5 années d'une crise politique dont les effets n'ont pas tous été mesurés. Comme vous avez pu le constater tout au long de la semaine, Madagascar entend faire face à ces engagements. Et concernant notre contribution à la promesse de Sydney, je peux vous dire que Madagascar s'engage à s'assurer que l'ensemble des aires protégées créées dans le cadre de la vision d'Urban acquiert un statut de protection définitive avant le 15 mai de l'année 2015. Je souhaite à ce que aux 7 millions d'hectares d'aires protégées que nous avons aujourd'hui, il ne reste pas des îlots isolés et qu'ils soient intégrés dans un paysage environnemental global et harmonieux. Je peux vous dire aussi aujourd'hui que Madagascar s'engage à consolider et sécuriser les progrès acquis depuis Durban et à améliorer la gestion des aires protégées ainsi créées. Donc, en plus des aires protégées terrestres, nous nous engageons aujourd'hui à tripler le nombre d'aires marines protégées.
Wow. Encore.
Madagascar s'engage aussi à assurer le financement pérenne de son système d'aires protégées à travers le renforcement des mécanismes existants ou la mise en place de mécanismes innovants. Ainsi, nous nous assurerons que le capital de la Fondation pour les aires protégées soit porté à un niveau conforme aux besoins de l'ensemble du système des aires protégées. De même, nous veillerons à ce qu'une partie substantielle des revenus tirés de l'écotourisme vienne soutenir la conservation de nos parcs nationaux. Bien entendu, nous poursuivrons résolument le développement des projets liés à la RED+. Pour conclure, je réitère aussi notre engagement pour mettre en place une politique de tolérance zéro quand il s'agit du trafic illégal de nos ressources naturelles. Nous renforcerons particulièrement la lutte contre le trafic de bois de rose. Toutefois, ce trafic concerne, je peux vous le dire, un réseau mondialisé. Aussi, Madagascar sollicite votre soutien pour éradiquer ce fléau. Nous avons l'obligation d'agir ensemble et de concert afin de sécuriser les aires protégées où se trouve le bois de rose. Mesdames et messieurs, ceci est la contribution de Madagascar dans le cadre de la promesse de Sydney. Ensemble, je suis convaincu, ensemble, nous irons de l'avant et ensemble, nous atteindrons nos objectifs partagés. Mesdames et messieurs, je vous remercie de votre aimable attention.
Monsieur le Président, je ne trouve pas les mots pour vous remercier pour votre immense engagement pour la protection de la nature. Je crois que vous avez entendu et vous avez senti ce que mes collègues ici ressentent. Notre prochain intervenant est son Excellence Fouad Mohaji, vice-président de l'Union des Comores. Monsieur le vice-président, je vous invite à venir avec nous.
Son Excellence, Monsieur le Président de la République Malagasy, Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres et représentants gouvernementaux, Mesdames et Messieurs les dirigeants d'organisations internationales, Mesdames et Messieurs les représentants des institutions et organisations internationales, Monsieur le Président de l'IUCN, chers ONG, chère communauté de la Terre, honorable assistance, Mesdames et Messieurs, Assalamu alaikum, que la paix soit sur vous. Au nom du président de l'Union des Comores et au nom de mon pays, je voudrais saisir cette heureuse opportunité qui m'est offerte de m'adresser aux défenseurs de la Terre pour remercier le gouvernement et le peuple australien pour l'accueil ô combien très chaleureux qui nous est réservé depuis notre arrivée dans ce beau pays et pour les grandes dispositions prises en vue de la réussite de cet important congrès mondial des parcs. Mes remerciements vont également à l'endroit de nos partenaires que sont l'IUCN, l'AFD, le Fonds mondial de l'environnement, le PNUD, et pour leur appui et soutien constant au maintien de la biodiversité unique des Comores et donc du patrimoine naturel et mondial. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, depuis la ratification de la Convention sur la diversité biologique, l'Union des Comores a placé la conservation de la biodiversité au centre de ses préoccupations et a l'ambition d'en faire un des principaux moteurs de son développement. Nous avons compris que le développement vert en Union des Comores est la condition de notre survie en tant que petit État insulaire. Depuis la création du premier parc des Comores, les communautés des Comoriens ont compris que la conservation et l'utilisation durable de la biodiversité n'est pas une contrainte, mais plutôt une opportunité de développement et donc un enjeu à la fois national et mondial. Et grâce à cela, nos communautés ont également vu leurs revenus augmenter à travers l'exploitation durable des ressources naturelles. Pour affirmer l'engagement du gouvernement de l'Union des Comores, nous avons adopté en 2012 le manifeste d'Itsandra sur le partenariat pour le développement vert en Union des Comores et adopté cette année une stratégie de croissance accélérée et de développement durable qui offre un cadre de développement durable à moyen terme pour réaliser la vision ambitieuse des Comoriens de faire de leur pays un pays émergent d'ici à 25 ans. Il s'agit tout d'abord de promouvoir le patrimoine naturel et culturel et l'utilisation optimale des ressources naturelles, renforcer les fondements d'une croissance économique forte, viable, durable, équitable et inclusive, renforcer la bonne gouvernance et la résilience face à la fragilité politique, et enfin, améliorer la qualité de vie de la population et garantir l'équité dans l'accès aux services sociaux de base. Cet engagement place surtout et avant tout la préservation de la biodiversité des écosystèmes ainsi que la résilience des communautés et des institutions au changement climatique au cœur du développement de l'Union des Comores. Honorable assistance, au nom du président de la République et au nom de tout le peuple comorien, nous avons décidé et vous demandons tous de vous joindre à nous dans cet engagement. 1. De classer d'ici fin 2007 22% de notre territoire terrestre et 5% de notre zone économique exclusive, la majeure partie de la zone côtière sur un territoire exigu de près de 2300 km en aire protégée. Ainsi, en plus, je vous remercie. Ainsi, en plus du parc marin de Moélie, au total, ce sont 7 autres aires protégées qui vont être créées. Nous allons lancer le processus de classement du volcan Kartala ainsi que sa forêt environnante au patrimoine mondial de l'UNESCO. Nous allons également accélérer le processus de classement de toute l'île de Moélie en réserve de biosphère. Wow. Honorable assistance, chère communauté mondiale pour la nature, l'Union des Comores à lui tout seul ne dispose pas des capacités nécessaires pour relever ce grand défi et ambitieux. Nous appelons donc notamment l'IUCN, le WWF, Conservation internationale, la World Conservation Society, la Fédération internationale des Rangers, ainsi que tous les autres défenseurs de la nature à nous accompagner dans cette grande réalisation. Nous comptons votre expérience et sur le partage de savoir-faire, savoir-faire techniques et scientifiques pour relever ce défi, car nous sommes convaincus que c'est ensemble, unis et main dans la main, que nous allons pouvoir réussir. Mon pays mesure l'importance d'asseoir des mécanismes de financement innovants pour parvenir à une gestion efficace de ces aires protégées. Ainsi, les Comores voudraient la mise en place d'un fonds fiduciaire comme mécanisme de financement durable des aires protégées. Il est donc important pour nous de nous assurer de l'intérêt et du soutien de la communauté scientifique internationale et de celle des champions de la préservation de la biodiversité pour appuyer les activités entourant la création et l'opération de notre système d'air protégé. En regardant cette assemblée, je suis confiant que les Comores ne manqueront pas de ce soutien pour mettre en place le système d'air protégé qui fait partie intégrante de sa vision de développement économique durable. Au nom du peuple comorien, des communautés gardiennes des parcs dans le monde entier, je vous remercie de votre soutien inconditionnel et de votre engagement sans faille pour la préservation de notre patrimoine naturel et culturel mondial. Vive les aires! Une ovation pour les communautés de parcs du monde entier. Je vous remercie pour votre aimable attention.
Merci beaucoup, monsieur. Merci, monsieur le vice-président. Nous encourageons vos grands efforts d'engager l'Union des Comores vers le développement vert et durable et nous vous accompagnerons dans cette voie. Merci. Our host, Australia, has already announced some important commitments throughout this Congress. Please join me in welcoming the Australian Minister for the Environment, the Honourable Greg Hunt.
Friends, the promise of Sydney. We stand in a part of Sydney which for 15,000 years and more was managed in its natural state by the people of the Eora Nation, our traditional owners. We stand in a part of Sydney which for 150 years was then converted to brickworks and abattoirs and the foulest of industrial uses. And we stand in a part of Sydney which for 15 years, if you travel but 500 metres to the west, has been reclaimed by nature and by humanity working together to create one of Australia's great urban parks. This transition is part of the story that we all face with the promise of Sydney, the challenge of honouring our Indigenous leaders, the challenge of protecting nature, and the challenge of restoring our lands. I particularly, Madam Director General, want to acknowledge the work of Australia's Indigenous leaders in land and sea management today. And as the first promise of Sydney from Australia today, announce the appointment of Melissa George as the head of our Indigenous Environment Committee to bring together a network of land and sea Indigenous managers in a national plan around our country.
Wow.
But more than that, to promise that over the next 5 years we will train, as part of our Green Army, 1,000 young Indigenous Australians to be future rangers, because they are the ones on the front line who will protect our parks and protect our waters and protect our great species. As a country, I make these commitments. We will take the appointment of our new Threatened Species Commissioner, a young Indigenous leader, Gregory Andrews, and have him work to reverse the decline that Australia faces and so many other nations face in our land-based mammals. Already today, he is out in one of our great protected areas doing the work. I promise, as we said on the opening night of this Congress, that Australia will end, through the force of law, forever, the practice of dumping spoil in our Great Barrier Reef Marine Park for capital dredge purposes. Within our region, I promise that Australia will work with the nations around us to end deforestation by 2030 and to halve deforestation by 2020 as part of the Great Asia-Pacific Rainforest Recovery Plan, which has come out of this very Congress and of which you should all be so proud. And I promise that Australia will commit to the Coral Triangle Initiative with significant funds, as we have done during the course of this Congress. At the global level, I promise that Australia will work with the nations of the world to bring forward a new General Assembly resolution to take real and concrete steps to help end the scourge of wildlife trafficking. And we will also support within the United Nations a resolution to bring forth a global oceans agreement to protect the great biodiversity of the world's enormous blue commons. Only yesterday, though, one more thing occurred. In Hobart, the Chinese President and the Australian Prime Minister came together to strike an agreement in writing where China committed and Australia committed to a permanent ban on mining in Antarctica, to a permanent protection of the wilderness of Antarctica. And to the permanent demilitarisation and peaceful use of Antarctica and its waters. But as important as the action plans have been in this Congress, there is one thing more important still, and that is the vision that all of us share that we can make things better. And so the ultimate promise that we all bring is not to leave here with a sense of despair, but to leave here with a sense of hope. And as I look out, I see no quitters. I see nobody who faces defeat. I see everybody who believes in the future. I thank you for that. You are the hope, you are the future, and you give us the sense that the promise of Sydney is to say to our youth, it can be better still. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Hunt, for all those amazing commitments, for reminding us of the history of human development here where we stand, and for encouraging us to take that journey toward a sustainable world together with hope and with energy. And you have inspired us greatly. I want to also join in congratulating Melissa George for a new appointment, and also congratulating Australia for having a threatened species commissioner. I think that's a great model for other countries to follow, and we'll take that message forward. So as the largest country in the world, Russia has a major role to play in conservation. Please welcome the Minister of Environment and Natural Resources of the Russian Federation, Mr. Sergei Donskoy.
So, distinguished Mr. President and dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, thank you for organizing this Congress and for opportunity to be here to talk about situation in Russia now. Russia's environmental doctrine envisions development of a system of protected areas as one of the key directions in state environmental policy. Today, there are more than 13,000 of protected areas of various categories in Russia, occupying 11% of the country area. The most valuable conservation areas are managed at the federal level. So they include 218 nature reserves, which the total area of 596,000 square kilometers, or almost 3% of the country. In January 2017, the federal system of protected areas will celebrate its 100-year anniversary. In 2011, the Russian government approved the concept of development of the Federal Protected Area Network to the 2020. Never before in the history of national wilderness conservation was a strategic planning initiative adopted at such a high level. And I'd like to emphasize that in preparing the concept, we carefully took into account resolutions at the World Parks Congress in Durban. Since the World Parks Congress in Durban, the network of federal protected areas has grown considerably, with the addition of 17 new reserves and the expansion of 6. I might mention that several of these newly created protected areas play an important role in conserving rare, threatened, and endangered wildlife, and such species like Amur tiger, forest leopard, snow leopard, polar bear, Mongolian gazelle, agali, Atlantic walrus, and whales. So, in the next 10 years, not less than 27 federal reserves will be created, and the area of an additional 12 will be expanded. Critical habitats for important threatened species, including the Amur tiger in Bikin River watershed, the southern Russian forest, the polar bear in the Novosibirsk archipelago, and the Siberian crane in Yakutia will be granted protection. And the total area of federal protected areas will be increased by 22%. In the next decade, Russia plans to increase the area of marine protected areas to 17 million hectares.
Wow.
So in the next years, several protected areas will continue to implement special projects on conservation and breeding of rare species. In particular, a wild population of Caucasus, Persian leopard, which completely disappeared in the wild several decades ago, we will restore in the Western Caucasus. The population of the Amur leopard in the southern Russian forest will increase by 60%, up to 100 animals. Two new wild free roaming groups of European bison will be reintroduced in nature reserves of the Volga region in the Caucasus Mountain, increasing the number of groups of European bison to 8. It will be about 200 animals. We will continue to introduce new technologies of federal protected areas such as satellite monitoring, modern means of communication, and observation, radio tracking, and drones. Also, ecological tourism will be developed in federal protected areas, including the creation of modern visitors facilities, at the same time proving a high level of natural resources protection. We see the Arctic, Kamchatka, Baikal, and Caucasus as priority regions for tourism development. And we clearly understand that in order to improve management effectiveness in protected areas and thereby increase their contribution to conservation of biodiversity and natural and cultural heritage, it is important to use approaches, ideas, and principles which have been successfully tested and implemented in countries around the world. In this regard, we seek to learn more from your experience. Over the next decade, I believe it is necessary to strengthen international cooperation of wilderness conservation through mechanisms such as transboundary reserves, sister parks, training seminars, exchanges, innovative experience, joint research, and educational and environmental projects. We hope that IUCN, World Conservation Union, and the World Commission of Protected Areas will play a significant role in furthering this collaboration. I would also like to formally announce that Russia is ready and willing to host the 7th World Parks Congress in 2024. So in conclusion, on behalf of my Russian colleagues, I would like to express my sincere appreciation and gratitude to the Congress organizers. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Spasibo большое, Minister Donskoy. A big country and amazing commitments. Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation. Minister Donskoy reminded us that everything that we're doing here is a continuation of work that we have been doing since 1962, the first World Parks Congress, and certainly building on the accomplishments of the Congress held in Durban a little over 10 years ago. So I have the great honor and pleasure to invite the Deputy Minister of Environmental Affairs of South Africa, Her Excellency Barbara Thompson, to come and speak to us, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Gigi. Your Excellencies, the President of Madagascar, Vice President of the Union of Comoros, the Minister of Environment from Australia, Minister of Environment from the Russian Federation. Good morning to you all. In South Africa, we recognize the importance of aligning our conservation efforts with our country's social equity imperatives. Our vision is to ensure socio-economic transformation and growth of the biodiversity economy, while ensuring the entrance of the landholders and previously disadvantaged communities into the mainstream economy to restore their pride and dignity. Our government's commitment in terms of Vision 24 is to create at least 60,000 new sustainable jobs, ensure that 2 million hectares of new land is acquired and restored, and that more than 1 million poverty-stricken people are supported. South Africa, through the presidential lead project called Operation Phakisa, or Operation Speed Up, promises to triple our ocean protection over the next 10 years through the creation of a network through the creation of a network of marine protected areas within our exclusive economic zone. This will indeed unlock the economic potential of our oceans. We aim to use our unique geographic position to encourage the African region to create a marine protected area network that will increase ecosystem resilience, maintain genetic biodiversity, as well as our ability to cope with and adapt to impacts of climate change as a development continent. Long live our protected areas, long live.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister Thompson. Clearly, South Africa has not lost its energy to continue with us after Durban. France was the birthplace of IUCN in 1948 and remains one of our most active partners in conservation. J'ai l'honneur de donner la parole à l'ambassadeur délégué à l'environnement, Monsieur Xavier Sticker. Monsieur l'ambassadeur.
Monsieur le Président, Messieurs les ministres, Madame la Directrice Générale, chère Julia, chers tous, ce que je voudrais vous dire, c'est que la France remplit les engagements internationaux en matière de protection de l'environnement et en matière de biodiversité, qu'il s'agisse de nos aires marines terrestres, qu'il s'agisse de nos aires terrestres, qu'il s'agisse de nos aires marines, nous sommes au rendez-vous des engagements qui ont été pris. Ce n'est donc pas de cela que je voudrais vous entretenir au premier chef, puisque le privilège qui m'est fait de m'exprimer devant vous aujourd'hui m'oblige, et il m'oblige à dépasser les frontières d'un seul État pour évoquer des enjeux qui sont les nôtres, que nous partageons tous et que nous devons relever ensemble. Premièrement, je voudrais évoquer la question des aires protégées, rappeler le fait que nous sommes ici au Congrès des parcs de l'Union internationale pour la conservation de la nature. Nous sommes ici non pas pour négocier des mots, mais pour prendre des engagements, pour travailler à la concrétisation de nos actes.
Et c'est de la responsabilité de chacun. Et c'est le sens de la promesse de Sydney que d'établir la liste de l'ensemble de ces engagements, qui sont des engagements concrets. Pour reprendre une formule voltairienne, il faut cultiver notre jardin. Et Voltaire avait un jardin qui n'était pas très loin de Gland, le siège de l'IUCN. Il faut aussi, au-delà des engagements que nous prenons à titre national, travailler sur les partenariats. En ce qui concerne mon pays, l'Agence française de développement y est très active. Et dans les années à venir, le président de l'Union des Comores y a fait allusion, l'Agence française de développement mettra à la disposition de ses partenaires dans les pays du Sud au moins 160 millions d'euros par an pour pouvoir financer des actions en matière de protection de l'environnement et de la biodiversité. Le deuxième sujet dont je voudrais vous entretenir est un sujet global, un sujet qui précisément dépasse les frontières, puisqu'il est en dehors des juridictions de chacun de nos États. C'est la haute mer. Si nous nous référons aux récits des écrivains d'autrefois, parfois même du XIXe siècle, nous pouvons avoir des textes qui nous indiquent que l'océan était tellement plein de vie que les bateaux avaient du mal à passer. Était-ce des récits exagérés, des légendes, comme à l'époque où sur les cartes on décrivait des monstres marins? En sommes-nous si sûrs? Tellement la biodiversité de nos océans a été érodée. Aujourd'hui, nos océans sont sans gouvernance en tout cas, capables de protéger la nature, de protéger la biodiversité. Prenons l'engagement. Et la France, mon pays, travaillera très activement et mobilisera ses forces. Travaillons d'ici la fin de l'année prochaine au début de la négociation d'un instrument international qui permettra de protéger la biodiversité, de protéger nos océans dans le cadre de la Convention de Montego Bay. C'est un défi qui est devant nous. La troisième chose que je voudrais évoquer avec vous, c'est l'enjeu du climat. En décembre 2015, le sommet du climat, la conférence des parties, la 21e du nom, à la Convention sur le changement climatique, se réunira à Paris. La France y engagera en tant que pays hôte, et le moment venu en tant que président de la conférence, toutes ses forces pour parvenir à un succès qui est à la fois ambitieux, un accord qui nous engage tous, un accord qui est vérifiable. Ce sera le principal défi de l'année à venir dans le domaine de l'environnement au sens large. Pour autant, nous devons établir les liens entre la protection de la nature, les aires protégées qui nous occupent ici lors de ce congrès et le défi de la lutte contre le changement climatique. Les aires protégées sont affectées par le changement climatique, nous le savons. Et elles font partie des solutions. Et nous devons travailler à des solutions. Je propose que l'esprit de la promesse de Sydney s'applique au changement climatique et que nous puissions identifier dans chacun de nos engagements pour la protection des espaces naturels ce qui constitue des contributions pour la lutte contre le changement climatique et pour favoriser l'émergence du consensus dont nous aurons besoin l'année prochaine à Paris sur le climat. La France, pour sa part, s'engage à protéger 35 000 hectares de mangroves dans ses outre-mer d'ici la fin de l'année prochaine en tant que contribution à cet effort. Le dernier point que je voudrais évoquer dans ce cadre-là, c'est la question de la connaissance scientifique. La plateforme internationale pour la biodiversité et pour les services écosystémiques, l'IPBES, est en mesure maintenant de commencer ses travaux et de faire rapport dans quelques années. Il faut que ce travail s'accélère. Il est essentiel que cette IPBES travaille de façon très étroite avec le GIEC, dans le cadre de la Convention climat. Nous appelons de nos vœux l'intensification de ces efforts et de cette convergence. Nous appelons également de nos vœux à la poursuite du travail de diffusion des enjeux de la lutte contre le changement climatique auprès du grand public dans chacun de nos États. En conclusion, je vous dirais bienvenue à tous à Paris dans un peu plus d'un an, en décembre 2015. Je vous invite à appliquer pour cela la coutume qui est celle de l'Océanie, qui est celle du Pacifique. Ne venons pas les mains vides, que chacun vienne avec ses engagements, avec ses promesses qui sont celles de la promesse de Sydney et qui seront complétées de manière à ce que nous parvenons à partager des résultats les plus importants, les plus impressionnants possibles, et que ce soit l'occasion, compte tenu de ce à quoi nous serons parvenus, d'une grande célébration. Je vous remercie.
Merci. Merci, Monsieur l'ambassadeur. Merci, Monsieur l'ambassadeur. Merci beaucoup. Merci de nous avoir rappelé qu'il faut absolument cultiver notre jardin, comme Voltaire nous a dit. And actually, our garden now is our shared planet. Thank you also for reminding us about the close links between biodiversity and climate. And we will be with you in Paris next year with the commitments and the promises of Sydney, which are very important for those discussions. So I want to thank again all of the leaders for their amazing commitments to the promise of Sydney, and I'd like to ask the photographers to take a picture of them before we let them go back to their seats. Thank you very much. Wow, that was amazing. So, during all of these meetings, we've been doing good hard science, but we've also remembered that culture is a part of the diversity we celebrate. So now I have the pleasure of introducing a very special act, the Pacific drummers Rako Pacifica from Fiji, who welcomed us to the shores of Darling Harbor on the opening day of the Congress. Please give them a big hand.
fokia osanua la esau ngaren skema mpua fokia osanua la esau ngaren skema mpua Charone arnelongi, ne fulam lamme is. Charone arnelongi, ne fulam lamme is. Charone arnelongi, ne fulam lamme is. Masasine kolua osanua. Charone arnelongi, ne fulam lamme is. Charone arnelongi, ne fulam lamme is. Charone arnelongi, ne fulam lamme is. Masasine kolua osanua. Ma peret ne is fue, ololum on oitu. Ma peret ne is fue, ololum on oitu. Ma peret ne is fue, ololum on oitu. Masasine kolua osanua. Ma peret ne is fue, ololum on oitu. Ma peret ne is fue, ololum on oitu. Ma peret ne is fue, ololum on oitu. Masasine kolua osanua. Sosime 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 kolua osanua. Our land, our oceans are slowly dying away. We are the Pacific, the people and the voice. Help us save our land, our seas, and our oceans, our birds, and our trees from the actions of mankind. Whoa, na 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 na. Whoa, na 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 na. Yeah. Why oh why oh why? Why oh why oh why? There's a hole in me heart, I see it all falling apart. Why it happened this way? The earth we live in slowly melting away. We build, we cuddle, we dig, we march forward, but we never think
Alright, shadow we progress, we drain the life up, we hurt your mama, the gigs us mana, whatever become children of the sun, it's your mama that we bleed. Stand up, take it and unite in this fight. Why, oh, why, oh, why? Why, oh, why, oh, why? Why do we burn the forest and pollute the skies and damage the ocean? Why do we kill our brothers and sisters with poison? Now mom, she crying, she dying, who will help her? Who will protect? Mama, my heart and mama, me soul, mama, color, me spirit. I'm sorry, please forgive me. My soul belongs to you. Say there's a hole in the heart, I see it all falling apart. Why it happened this way? If we live it slowly melting away. We burn, we build, we color, we dig much forward, but we never think. Alright, shadow, we progress, we drain the life out. We hurt your mama, it gives us mana. Whatever become children of the sun, it's your mama that we bleed. So stand up, take it and unite in this fight. Why, oh, why, oh, why? I'm scared. Why, oh, why, oh, why? Why, oh, why, oh, why?
Whoa.
Amazing. Thank you. Let's give them another hand. That was really beautiful. I've had such a great week. I have to say that one of the really high points among many was coming in on one of those vakas that actually came from Fiji. I didn't get on in Fiji, but just to be with these people, I wish I could have, but it was amazing. So over the past few days, we have been meeting in Congress streams and themes, discussing the various aspects of protected area management, as well as broader conservation and sustainability issues. We're now going to hear about some of the big messages coming out from the 8 streams and 4 cross-cutting themes. To present these, please join me in welcoming Penelope Figgis, Director of the Australian National Committee for IUCN. Penny, please come and join us.
Madam Chair, Excellencies, distinguished guests, dear friends and colleagues from all the corners of our beautiful and wondrous planet. It's been absolutely wonderful to have you here, and thank you for making this long and arduous journey. Australians, if you see them looking happy in the last week, it's because it wasn't us doing the long-haul travel this time. This morning I have the considerable pleasure and honour, and I might say considerable challenge, of presenting you just a brief distillation of the incredible work that we have seen in the last few days, an absolutely formidable human effort from the streams and cross-cuttings. Please see it a little bit like speed dating. It is just a little picture, and if you are very interested, there will be many layers and much information for you to explore later. So let's commence. I hope we have it. Right. Our first goal, of course, is reaching conservation goals. And, oh, sorry, I'm looking down here. Okay, the main thing that we want to communicate here is the absolutely urgent need for bold action. And thank you to all those wonderful leaders who just showed that they understand that and have given us commitments. We need more and better managed and better governed protected areas. That is undoubtedly true. And we have the Aichi targets. They are excellent. They are our guiding light at the moment. But of course, we're already thinking beyond Aichi, and some targets are being reviewed. And we have heard that we need ambitious targets from reaching conservation goals, 30% at least in no-take areas of marine parks around the world. So that will be absolutely outstanding if we achieve that. In stream 2, responding to climate change. We all know this is the slow meteorite approaching our Earth, and we really need to combine and form partnerships just in the way we would if we were told that, that we had a threat from space. We have, I'm sorry, just coordinating this. Climate change is our greatest challenge, but already progress is being made, and it was wonderful that during this Congress we had the dramatic announcements from China and the US. But we will need to use our protected areas. They are both threatened by protected areas, but also the message of this stream is they are part of natural solutions, that they hold the carbon of this world. They are critical for protecting and giving us resilience against many of the threats of climate change. And we particularly, this stream said we should focus on our polar regions, which by definition are the most vulnerable. Improving health and well-being, absolutely wonderful. And this was something that perhaps was not talked about so much in Durban. And in some ways, I'm very proud that Australia has been a leader in this, particularly Parks Victoria. And what we're saying here is that conservation and good park management, we decided on 2 quotes, and you can read them there, that it was very interesting. Jonathan Patt said, "We'll save more lives and combat more disease than the efforts of the health sector." Our doctors may not like that, but it's a really interesting perspective. And also that in unlocking the value of parks and protected areas for health and well-being, we can also conserve biodiversity. These 2 things are compatible, and we applaud those who have done an outstanding job in that stream. Supporting human life. We know that our protected areas are not nice to have. They're not an optional extra. They're not just a pretty place to have a picnic. They are. They're wonderful places for us to enjoy and have recreation, but they're far more than that. And I think one of the most wonderful things, I agree with the Director General, was the arrival of the Varkas, and their message was very clear from the Pacific. It's not nice to have. It's life, it's livelihoods, and in some cases, it's life and death. And so their key messages are that protected areas are a way to hold our ecosystems, to hold all those values that come through healthy ecosystems, and that we need to have an increased emphasis on particular things: food, water, livelihood, security. And certainly disaster risk is a major topic that we're beginning to understand more and more. Okay. Reconciling development challenges. Clearly, all over the world, perhaps this is our greatest challenge. We want to develop. There are a lot of us. How do we find this space to bring these things together? It's easy to say and incredibly difficult to do, but we are making progress. And what we need to convey to the world's thinkers and developers, the G20, is that good conservation is good development. Healthy ecosystems, healthy are part of our natural capital that deliver many, many, many human benefits. We destroy them, we actually undermine our development, not assist it. And clearly we have to get this into our sustainable development goals. Enhancing diversity and quality of government. How do we do this? Who do we do it with? And clearly this has been pioneered in Durban in particular, the discussion of governance, and it has had a major emphasis here. So we want many, many different diverse governance models reflecting the richness of how we actually protect all over the world, people, communities, local people, indigenous people have all been committed for many years in protecting. We need to work in all those amazing partnerships. We need better recognition of ICCAs to say, yes, we do. These are critically important all over the world. We know this, and they need to be properly recognised and not just recognised, resourced, etc. The private protected area in this country has boomed in the last decade, and thanks to governments for supporting it and helping it get going. But all over the world, these efforts and these combinations, these permutations and combinations are how we will do things. Innovation is a critical part that's been across many of our sessions. Innovative relationships. Respecting Indigenous and traditional cultures, again, a trend that we have seen develop, and particularly pertinent in our own country where this is so critical. And clearly what we are saying here is to embrace all of the knowledge, the skills, the capacity, not only embrace it, facilitate it, ensure that we take rights-based, not only rights-based, recognizing race, but also responsibilities towards the land. And we must, a critical component here is not to think of Indigenous people as stakeholders. When you own the house, you're not a stakeholder. You're not just one person with an interest, and that there needs to be proper respect and understanding of that, and also building of capacity. Okay, inspiring a new generation. Haven't you been fantastic? I have enjoyed that so much, and personally, I have so loved seeing some of the young people I've encouraged over the time standing here, proud and absolutely marvelous. So, inspiring a new generation. Well, you've inspired us this week, I'm telling you. But there are two layers to this. We've got to get the kids in this beginning. Let's say it simply, take kids to nature, immerse them, invite them. That's one of the most critical things we can do. Okay, expect and direct experience is one of the answers. We've seen some marvelous examples of that and how inspirational it is for people to be taken. Mentor, but the key message is mentor, include, empower these young people in a non-tokenistic way. World Heritage, where do we go with World Heritage? World Heritage obviously is the best of the best. We must keep the outstanding exceptional. We must maintain the integrity of the process by which we assess, we nominate, and also we must get on the front foot. And the outlook reports that IUCN has put forward at this Congress are a wonderful example of how IUCN wants to be not just part of the nomination process, not just part of reviewing when there are problems, but very much part of ensuring that the outstanding does stay exceptional and become lights, beacons of hope and beacons of good examples. And of course, we must move to integrate Indigenous perspectives more profoundly into that whole process. Okay. Marine. Goodness, Marine, one of the most active, one of the most techie. They really lead us all and inspire us all with their fantastic technology. Clearly, this has got to be a priority. If you look at those percentages, I'm sorry, we're not there on Marine. Key message, we've got to get there on Marine. We've got to keep declaring, and again, thank you to the people who have forwarded that from your governments. MPAs are a beacon of hope. They are an incredibly important part of keeping the productivity of 71% of the earth. High seas are a great priority. We cannot leave the governance of the high seas to total exploitation or a lack of governance that recognizes conservation. We must prioritize the Arctic, the Antarctic and Southern Oceans, and the Sargasso Sea, I believe, was also strongly emphasized. Okay, now we get to capacity building, an incredibly hard-working group, I know. And the issue there is that we need well-qualified rangers. We need to professionalize protected area managers, assist them in the whole range of skills, from the simplest of keeping the motorboat running properly right up to more managerial tasks. So we do need to develop all those competencies, curriculums, etc., and knowledge exchange and mentoring. And it's wonderful to see, again generated by my own country, the Protected Area Learning and Research Centre is a legacy product of this event. And of course we must draw on all skills and all knowledges, very much the traditional knowledges. Okay. Nelly, social compact. I was a bit dubious about this photograph, whether we're going to have a social compact with penguins, but I'd be delighted to have one. A new social compact. This stream was a little bit different, and they were very much engaged with the other streams in having a dialogue about what do we mean, what are the social relationships to achieve good conservation. They looked at some of the issues of the past and how we've made mistakes in the past, and perhaps how we need to redress that. And certainly they concluded that we need that sort of trust and diversity of custodians across the whole gamut. And certainly they want to continue that conversation, and I know they will in a meaningful way. Okay. It is now my pleasure to get to the really important part of this, which is a vote of thanks to these remarkable and incredibly hardworking people. So could I ask, please, the representatives of the streams to join me on the stage? Just either side of me. Ladies and gentlemen, Emily here. Thank you. It is simply impossible to exaggerate the sheer volume of human dedication and commitment which these people and many others have offered to IUCN, to this Congress, and to the world. Many people, I am very aware that they have sat on very long and usually very badly timed phone conferences, have spent just enormous number of hours. Are there other people in the audience? I would like them to stand if they're other stream leaders, or whether we have most people here. If you are there, please stand up. Please, a standing ovation again. Thank you very much indeed. I'm sure you'll say your personal thanks to them, but I will hand back to the chair.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you. I wish I had the time on my program to come and give each of you a big thanks and a big hug. So we only gave Penny Figgis 15 minutes. And that's absolutely not enough to tell you about all the things that we have learned during these days. But I want to assure you that not a word is lost. You will be able to see it all on our website, and we will follow up every bit of wisdom that we've gotten from you. And again, thank you. Do remember these are all volunteers, and they have put in an amazing amount of passion, energy, and time and knowledge in this. So now we have a big challenge, and that is how to communicate all this to those of us who are not here with us in Sydney, and in fact every citizen on the planet. And to help us do that, we have a great panel of communication gurus who will tell us about how they're already getting the messages and stories out about protected areas and how we as a conservation community can do the communications better. So please welcome on stage Beth Foster, Vice President for Communications at National Geographic Society. Beth, welcome. And thank you. Thomas Friedman, Foreign Affairs columnist in the New York Times. Tom, thank you. Award-winning wildlife photographer Adrian Stern. And last but not least, Jeff Koinange, host of the Kenya Television Network and former CNN Africa correspondent. Jeff, great. We need your help. One of the things that I am really always concerned is how do we get these messages out? We are passionate about them. We know that they're important. So to start with, National Geographic, which is a member of IUCN, about which I'm very proud, reaches over 600 million people around the world. And we're very happy and proud to have Nat Geo as our media partner in this Congress. So Beth, you have the privilege of leading National Geographic's upcoming multi-year, multi-platform initiative focusing on parks and protected areas. Can you tell us about it, please?
Yes, I can. But first, I wanted to introduce our organization to all of you and give you a little bit of context for how we're thinking about things. Oh, no, I don't. Hang on.
Can we have a little help with that video, please? Should be.
The mission of National Geographic is really about inspiring people to care about the planet through science and exploration, through education, and through storytelling.
And it comes down to something very simple. I can say, this is it. This is what I saw.
It's not just big open spaces everywhere. There are communities, there are people there are elephants there are lions there, and it's a huge privilege that we get to do the work that we do.
In the last 5 years, we have visited 9 of the most remote places in the ocean. And we have inspired leaders to protect 5 of them in some of the largest marine reserves on the planet.
Change the Course has provided water for the restoration of the Colorado River Delta. It shows what we can do if we put our minds and hearts to it.
The illegal ivory trade is skyrocketing. The elephant's population is plummeting. When I am exposed to an unfair fight, I have not been able to turn away.
$150 million worth of gold that was then used by the rebels to finance the war in Eastern Congo stopped overnight. That's the power of photography.
We are in our infancy as humans. We think we know this place, but we don't. We think we understand how things work, but we don't. That's why exploration is so fundamentally important.
Children understand very quickly. I think that young people, by and large, get the message that every individual can make a difference every day. Then, with hope, people take action, and it won't be too late.
Wow.
So our history with national parks actually started almost 100 years ago when our editor of the magazine at the time took a walk in the woods with politicians and business leaders. And that helped lead to the founding of the U.S. National Park Service a year later. Parks have been woven into our DNA from the very beginning. And we've broadened our focus to look at issues for people, protected areas, and wildlife around the world. We actively support conservation and research in protected areas, and National Geographic's Pristine Seas project led by Enrique Sala is a great example of that and of our commitment to continuing to do that. In 2016, we're going to be starting a major cross-organizational initiative looking at the intersection of people and nature through the lens of parks and protected areas. It will include a year-long series in National Geographic magazine, as well as programming on our National Geographic channel and books and other media platforms that we control. And it's part of our commitment to the promise of Sydney to work with the IUCN and all of you on sharing these stories and helping people understand how we need nature and the crucial role protected areas play. Thank you. Emmanuel de Merode alluded to something last night that really resonated with me, and it's important to all of us at National Geographic. We don't want to be the organization that documents the demise of the world's natural resources. We want to help inspire solutions and show ways we can meet the challenges of living with nature and managing protected areas. And we do that a lot of the time through stories at National Geographic magazine, because good stories are internalized by people and they impact their hearts and their minds. And stories come in all shapes and sizes. They can be anything from a magazine article to a television documentary to a blog post or an Instagram feed. Your stories, our stories, they're really vehicles to take people to places we care about and help them care too. And we're on that journey with you because we know from experience that storytelling can help to change the world, and we're committed to that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And
I actually forgot to leave you with my one final thought, and that really for stories to work, to impact those hearts and minds, storytelling is personal. You have to make it personal. It has to be relevant to your audience and to the individuals in that audience.
That is great advice, which we need. Thank you very much. 2016, of course, is the first time in the long history of IUCN that we'll have our World Conservation Congress in the United States, in Hawaii. So we'll all be reading the National Geographics, as we do already.
I hope so.
But 2016 will even be more special. Thank you. So Tom, you've had an illustrious career in covering all kinds of crises, from political to ecological. So we all know that it is crises that seem to grab the headlines. But is there a space for good stories about protected areas and about what nature does for all of us?
Well, thank you, I certainly believe so. It's why I came here in Brisbane, because I thought this was about, I cover national security for the New York Times, and I can't think of anything that's going to affect national security more in the 21st century than the health of these ecosystems. So, I don't know what happened in Brisbane, maybe someone can tell me, but I thought that what happened here was like really cool. I would just give two takeaways, one, an insight that is utterly mundane to people here, but something I will convey to my readers when I read about this conference Sunday in the New York Times. And that is when we talk about protected areas, when we talk about protected forests or marine sanctuaries, there's a tendency to think of these as big zoos, as places you go to visit. You buy a ticket and you go in, or a place you simply preserve. And I think one of the most important messages of this conference and of everything the IUCN does is nature is not something that you visit. That a park like Virunga or Yellowstone, these are huge engines of life, basically, that sustain life not only in the immediate areas, but downstream and in the air for millions and millions of people. And it's not just something you visit and you go to and you leave, and therefore preserving these is really essential for the stability of every and any society. I got to participate in the Years of Living Dangerously documentary last year on Showtime. I did climate change in the Arab Spring. And whoever thought that had anything to do with the Arab Spring? Well, you can't understand what happened in Syria if you don't understand that Syria experienced its worst drought in its modern history from 2006 to 2010. 2010. What happened in 2000? Oh, that's when the Arab Spring started. 1 million Syrian farmers and herders left their homes in the countryside, flocked to the cities, overwhelmed the infrastructure. The Assad government did nothing for them. They did not start the revolution. But when the revolution started, they couldn't wait to join. So the Syrian revolution was a huge climate, environmentally driven event. And I just want to follow up on what my colleague from National Geographic said. It's a fundamental rule of journalism that can really guide, I think, IUCN in the future, and that is that you can make a point or you can tell a story. Always tell a story. Whatever point you want to make, whether it's about biodiversity loss, then tell the story of an environmental hero like Emmanuel de Merode, who we got to interview yesterday. People relate to people and people relate to stories. Remember, the best-selling book in the history of the world is just a big, long story. It's called the Bible. So whatever you do, however you want to convey your message, statistics are great, numbers are great, scientific formula and equations are great, but embed them in a story. They'll go down easier and they'll spread farther and faster that way.
Thank you very much. Great advice. Getting advice like that from Tom Friedman is worth a lot. Thank you for calling the conservation community cool when we started. We are cool, and we better start showing the world how cool we are, and we are looking forward to reading your story in the Sunday Times. Very good. Thank you very much. So, Adrian, you have been capturing the beautiful images of wildlife and protected areas on camera in Africa, Australia, and many other places around the planet. So tell us, do photos go beyond that wow moment and lead us to action?
Look, I think I come from a very holistic big picture, and you have to start from a baseline that nobody cares. I know that's depressing, but if you start from the baseline that nobody cares and you understand that narrative is everything, then it's a very good baseline to start from. I'm here essentially. I'm from Sydney. I live in Africa. I've lived there for the last 8 years, and I'm here because I grew up reading The Jungle Book, Just So stories, Jock of the Bushveld, watching David Attenborough on the ABC on a Sunday night. And that's as simple as that. I fell in love with what I saw. So what I'm going to take you through very quickly today is a bit of disruptive storytelling, but bear with me. I'm going to show you this first picture. It has nothing to do with conservation. For those of you who know, that's Winston Churchill. I'm going to tell you a story behind the photo. You can, in this world of just white noise everywhere, photos everywhere, to immerse children, to tell those stories, to make them cry, to make them sit on the edge of their seat again, is how we're going to win this over. We can't just be greenies or tree huggers or people who wear sandals. we can't be that community. We need to engage the entire world. Yusuf Karsh, photographer, had nothing to lose. 33 years of age, 1941. He's about to take this photo of Churchill. At the last moment, he reaches over and pulls the cigar out of Churchill's mouth. It becomes the most famous portrait of Churchill ever taken. You guys will now never forget that portrait. You guys walk past it, you understand it. If I had not told you that story, it's just another photo. Yusuf Karsh went on to become the greatest portrait photographer of the 20th century, documented the entire 20th century. Desmond Tutu. That's my photo.
Really?
The narrative behind that is the world needs another Tutu. Again. Let's start from the baseline. No one cares. Let's make people care. F.W. de Klerk, Nobel Peace Prize winner, last apartheid president of South Africa. I asked him whether he was comfortable with himself. He's an imperfect man in a no-win situation. He said, I was. I said, what you did for your country, here's how I'd like to shoot you. And he did this for us. This portrait
changed the narrative of what we were doing. And I'll explain in one sec. This is the last portrait sitting with Nelson Mandela. We shot this because I shot the first two portraits. Through these first three portraits, I was able, so I flicked one, but I was able to put together a project that reframed the paradigm, the narrative of South Africa. I live in South Africa. I immersed myself in it. It's a wonderful, wonderful country, yet there was so much negativity about it. There was so much narrative about it being just around one man. And we wanted to show that South Africa was more than that. Through a photographic and short film project, we touched 150 million people around the world over 5 months and shifted the paradigm of what the rest of the world thought would happen to South Africa when Mandela passed on. What we then took, we took that, lifted it up, and I'm the WWF photographer in residence for South Africa. And we wanted to apply this to conservation. Now I'm going to show you two photos. I'm almost done. I know I've only got about 30 seconds, but this photo here is a nice portrait of a leopard. Again, you walk straight past it. Now this leopard, we worked out, she's a female, I followed her for 7 or 8 years, just near the Sabi Sands in Kruger. This was shot with an 85mm portrait lens. It's this long. So this leopard had learned to really trust me. It was a habituated leopard. She died last year. Now the story is, what is the story there? We worked out that this leopard was viewed 25 times a week for 10 years by people who had never seen a leopard before. We worked out that she had actually created 20,000 conservationists around the world. We made a film about her last moments. She went up a tree to protect her cub, was killed by a male leopard, fell down in front of 4 Land Rovers, broke her back, died in front of people. Extraordinary. But the story that goes with it is what creates this sense of wanting to go back. You do not kill what you love. If we can create this paradigm of children engaging, loving, understanding that this is all we have. We don't need another Transformers franchise. We don't need another Superman film. We don't need any of that. We do need to care about our world. So what we did was pick up this storytelling concept and apply it just here. This is the hardest thing I've probably ever done in my entire life, apart from telling my father I was going to become a photographer. That was quite difficult. But you'll see in the, as you look at it, right-hand screen, you'll see a leopard's head. Not the greatest photo of a leopard you've ever seen, but this was the first photo that we brought back to the government of Azerbaijan to show that the leopard was not extinct in Azerbaijan. They then put resources behind us for us to make a documentary. And we made a documentary about going and locating an animal that they thought was extinct. We came back 2 years later, I've never walked so far in my entire life, with this video. This is the first video of Caucasian leopard ever to come out of Azerbaijan. If somebody could press play on this, it's not particularly exciting, but this was proof of life. And this animal was on the Iranian border with Azerbaijan. There's no dramatic music, there's no storytelling to it, apart from what I'm telling you. And what is extraordinary, I know, very Australian. What I will tell you is this, that we brought this back. Azerbaijan then decided we want to save this leopard. They put millions behind leopard conservation. They held the Baku Big Cat Conference where I met Julia. On that day, they became a member of IUCN, and they are now focused on being a conservation leader in that area. Wow. Yeah. Now, to think that that came from one story, one photo, one 9-second clip of a leopard, for me is extraordinary. Where I get to is conservation itself is no longer compelling enough. I just left my family. I haven't seen them for 3 years, all family of lawyers. I try and explain to them about what they are. Dad goes, "What, are they all tree huggers there, mate?" And I go, No. We're here trying to do something about conservation. You sit these people down and put them in front of a documentary, a story, National Geographic, they immerse themselves in it. They now feel, you want them to empathise. We need to change conservation into self-preservation. It's the only way that it can happen. Conservation is not enough. Conservation actually for us now, this generation, is self-preservation. If we can invent the iPad, if we can invent these films, if we can invent the internet, surely we can change what we are doing to the world. And the one thing that gives me comfort is this. 500 years ago, we were burning witches. People were sitting around, people like us, and going, lucky we got rid of that one, she was a witch. I mean, Julia, we could have been sitting around now looking at you going, thank God we got rid of her, she was annoying. Now we look back and laugh and think, oh my God, weren't we mad? In 100 years' time, the next generation will be looking at this generation and saying, can you believe they used to hunt lion? They used to poach elephant. They destroyed our oceans. They will laugh and they will cry at what we did. It's a moving feast reality. Science is a moving feast, and we have an opportunity now to shift the paradigm, really make a difference. And to be honest with you, the way I do it, in my small way, is to tell stories. And the way these guys do it is to tell stories. I'll leave you with one thing. I go around the world. When I ask people, what do people think of Australia? Unfortunately, or fortunately, they all say, Crocodile Dundee. I love that movie. And you have to face facts. People love a good story, and we need to start telling these stories to our children to make a difference. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Adrian. I'm kind of embarrassed about my question. Clearly, photos go much beyond that 1 second wow moment. But I do think that we need lots of people like you to tell the background. I did meet Adrian in Azerbaijan, and indeed it was those pictures and the hundreds of hours that you waited to convince the world that there were leopards there that have now led to action. And that's what we want to do, and that's what we must all do. So, Jeff, you're a big star around the world. I'm sure lots of people have already asked you for your autograph here. And so you've been in broadcasting for many years. And what can you tell us about telling a powerful story, and how should we do it?
Thanks, Julia. And by the way, Adrian, I love Crocodile Dundee. Yeah.
We all do. Still very funny.
Yeah.
Still very funny.
Yeah. Look, at the end of the day, it begins with you. And I've seen in this conference here, there are a lot of commitments, there are a lot of good things coming out. But what happens when people go back home? What are they going to do? What's the next step? What's the follow-up? And it boils down to individuals and communities and what they're going to do in their little patches. Gone are the days where people rely on governments to come and shower them with good stuff. The people in the villages, in the communities, out there in the bush, they have to do it themselves. I have a talk show where I speak to a lot of people, and it's considered very controversial because I speak to people who are outspoken. And the other day, Dr. Richard Leakey, world famous paleontologist, came on, and we're talking about elephants and how they're being decimated in Kenya and in Africa, and it's an average of, I think, 30 elephants a month or some ridiculous number. And people can't believe that so many elephants are being killed and slaughtered and ivory sold in markets around the world. And he told me, Jeff, listen, how old is your son? I said, he's about 7 years old. He says, by the time that young man is 20, the only place he'll be able to see an elephant is in the zoo. That's how bad things are. And he put it in perspective. In South Africa, you live there, Adrian. In South Africa, they slaughtered, 1,300 rhinos last year? Come on. I mean, what are we doing? It's unbelievable. But as people are speaking out more, young people especially, and it's heartening to see, because 10, 20 years ago, no one considered the young people. They all said, oh, you guys wait till your turn is here. Now they are reaching out to the young people because it's time to open up. And they are the ones who are going to open up. They're the ones who are at stake in all this. They're the ones who are going to lose with the elephants and the rhinos and the conservation. We have a water catchment area in East Africa, the largest, called the Mao. 50 years ago, the forest cover in Kenya, for instance, was 10%. Today it's down to less than 2%. What does that mean? How does that translate? The young people who were born in the last decade or so, 50 years from now, will they have that water catchment area? Will there be more droughts? Will there be less animals? It begins with you. That's how we tell a story. It's about the individuals. And if they don't go out and do something about their own community, they will lose out in the end. They will lose out. One of the best movies I've ever watched, one of my favorite movies, is called Field of Dreams. I always talk about this movie, Field of Dreams. Kevin Costner, James Earl Jones talk about, it's actually a baseball movie, but not really about baseball. And there's this underlying message in the movie. You keep hearing it over and over again. And it says something like, if you build it, they will come. If you build it, they will come. If communities start building around themselves, if they start taking care of their patches, then the rest will follow through. If they don't do that, then we might as well just shut down the earth and put a sign saying, fixed, it's gone for repairs, or, back in 2 years, or back in 2,000 years. We can't afford that right now, Julia. There's so much at stake. And if we're not going to do it for ourselves, let's at least do it for our children and their children after that, because they'll be blaming us. They'll be saying, what did you all do? How could you have allowed this to happen? That's how we tell our story.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm very proud that I convinced my old friend Richard Leakey to become a patron of nature for IUCN. And I'm very involved with his work also in Kenya. So thank you all very much. Really, I think getting these stories out in the best way is really important. So I'd just like to ask any or all of you to close by, you've heard the messages coming out of this Congress this morning and while you've been here, and the buzz around the coffee spots and so on. What resonates with you as great communicators most, and what advice do you give for us, let's say starting tomorrow? We need to get one night's sleep, I think, but how do we tell the world, because the entire world is not here? Give us some advice. Any of you who wants to start?
You've got something starting on Sunday.
Well, I know, exactly. So I don't want to upstage your article, Tom, but just give us a little bit of heads up of what we should do, since unfortunately I can't compete with you as being a world famous journalist.
Well, it would be great to draw more attention to this conference. I know there's a lot of environmental journalists here, but they really aren't, from I would say just sort of mainstream, just basic news organizations here. And I think that's bad. I love Adrian's message. He just really summarized, I think, for me, what I learned here. Conservation is about self-preservation. Again, it's not something you do as a favor, not somewhere you visit. And so, had we all been thinking ahead, it would have been great if you had persuaded President Obama to fly down here by helicopter for 2 hours and bring the entire World Press Corps with him and let them just walk through that amazing hall and those exhibits and see those pictures and interact with all these amazing environmentalists and ecologists and scientists. I can't walk from point A to point B without someone stopping me and telling me a story. I could fill up a whole page of the newspaper. With great sincerity, these are people who really love what they do, and that really comes through. And so I know that's hard, but what's happening here, as everyone has said, this isn't just jive. This is really important. It's every bit as important as happens at a G20 or a G8 or a G77 or a G-Whiz. This is the real, this is the real deal, and you're a little bit shy, and this has been a problem with the whole climate debate. Scientists tend to be very, very careful, and polemicists don't. And so, as I said to the meeting the other day, the thing about Twitter and Facebook, they're all great, they're great technologies, but they can create a faux sense of activism, where people will say to me, but I tweeted about that. Really, you tweeted about that, okay? That's like firing a mortar into the Milky Way galaxy, okay? So it's really, really important. As a young people, the big oil companies, they're not on Facebook, okay? They're in your face, all right? And they're not in the chat room. They're in the cloakroom of the U.S. Congress, throwing on money and influence. So get out of Facebook and into somebody's face is really the best message I can give. So,
Wow. Thank you for taking my request for advice seriously. This is really great advice, really. Who else can help us continue? Beth, yes.
Well, it's interesting because I'm in communications and I'm thinking about this more from a PR angle too, as well as from our media arms at National Geographic. And I think there is value in social media because that's where people are consuming information and where they're gathering. So I agree with you that it isn't necessarily action, but if you're trying to reach people and build community and awareness of what you're doing, then I think thinking through your tactics and strategies around social media is really important for all of you. It's kind of the first base way to get there. And then traditional media, magazines, newspapers, they're rallying cries, and they're the types of things that can help move policy and broader debate. But I think there's a lot in having a strategy with social media, letting people understand and know what you're doing, and building community through it that you should look at too.
Yeah, I agree with Beth and disagree with Tom, because what am I going to tell my 500,000 followers on Twitter, Milky Way. No, but it's, look, the world is a global village now, and the fact that in Africa...
What are you going to tell them? The 140,000.
What are you going to tell them?
Yeah, the fact that every other person now in Africa has a smartphone, and that is the way to communicate. That's the only way. I mean, we're not spoiled for choice like many people around the world. That smartphone is their mode of communication, and it's interactive and it's real time. So yeah, it may only be a tweet, Tom, but at least you're reaching someone. There's a campaign in Kenya, I must mention this, speaking of elephants, called Hands Off Our Elephants, started by an organization. There's a bunch of Kenyans in here and they know about it. And it's really created a lot of awareness out there. Hands off our elephants. And there's this sign, this palm-fisted sign where, everyone's always saying hands off our elephants. And it's actually gotten a lot of attention, not just in Kenya, but around the world, spearheaded by Kenya's First Lady. But this is kind of thing that on social media, it goes viral every time people talk about, hands off our elephants. So yeah, you can't discard it, especially in Africa right now with communication, the way it's become. That smartphone, social media, Facebook, Twitter, it works.
So, and thank you. And
the real issue, though, is translating awareness into action.
Yeah.
And that's where sometimes people substitute awareness for action.
That's true.
And that's really my beef.
Yeah. No, okay, very good. Adrian, thank you. Yeah. How many, I want to know, Tom, you must have followers on Twitter. Tom, do you have followers on Twitter?
300,000, whatever, but I tweet once every blue moon,
Okay, I'm sure that once I read the...
New York Times tweets my column, that's all I do.
Once I'm going to read your article, I'm going to tweet, not to as many as you have yet, but I'll tweet it and encourage people to read it. Adrian, give us some advice, some more advice.
I've got about 8 followers on Twitter, so
8?
My kind of guy.
Yeah, I think it's a bit creepy, but I take a bottom-up approach. If there was enough public pressure on Obama, Abbott, Zuma, people saying, why aren't these people here? They'd be here, make no mistake about it. These governments work for us. They work for the people. And the bottom-up approach must be, there must be a way, there must be a movement, people must care, it must be top of mind. As an Australian, the one thing I can tell you proudly is that I would sooner shoplift than I would litter. Why? Because I grew up in the 80s where we cleaned up Australia, and it became one of those things, you do not drop that. And that was public, pushing this through public. My mum said, don't drop that, that's litter, put it in the bin. And we need to apply this globally to conservation. And I think it's got to be bottom up. You can't rely on governments. They are there as the pointy end of the stick, and they reflect what we want. And if we don't want a better world, if we don't want and understand self-preservation, then how can they apply that?
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I have to tell you that I've been Director General of IUCN for 8 years. I'm going to hand over the torch to a successor in January, but this is a dream for me because I think that when I arrived to IUCN, I found all these incredibly passionate, committed scientists who were a little bit shy about getting out beyond our community. And I think we've made a lot of progress when you see the different kinds of people who've come here. To have had you come, I really feel that I can now move on to doing something else. I feel really happy about this, and I really ask each of you to take this advice. Of course, conservation is about self-preservation, and tell that story not in a gloom and doom way, because I think people are sick of that, but rather showing how nature does provide solutions, and tell the stories in an interesting way and about yourself. I've really taken your advice to heart. I will continue to tweet, but I read the New York Times all the time too, from cover to cover. So thank you all very much. You really helped us get our messages out. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to write that down. Good stuff. Excuse me.
I'm amazed, but we're even right on time in this wonderful closing. Thank you. Thanks so much. I know you're leaving. Yeah. I have to tell Tom that we did ask President Obama to come, but we probably didn't do it with a good story, so we'll do it again. But he'll come to Hawaii, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Julie is not a witch, by the way. Definitely not a witch.
He says I'm not a witch. That's good to know. Well, maybe there are good witches too, you know. Yeah, let's take a picture of these amazing communicators. How wonderful to have them with us. Thank you. So IUCN World Parks Congresses are also occasions to recognize many dedicated people around the world working tirelessly in and for protected areas. So please join me in welcoming on the stage Ernesto Encarlin, Chair of the IUCN World Commission on Protected Areas, who everybody knows here by now. Ernesto. Natasha Miller, representing the Miller family, from Kenton Miller's daughter. Natasha, where are you? She's coming. Sean Wilmore, President of the International Ranger Federation. And Bill Jackson, Chief Executive of Parks Victoria. Before we start the awards ceremony, IUCN wishes to recognize rangers who sacrifice their lives on the front lines, those killed, those injured, and those that give their all for the cause of conservation. May I now ask for a moment of silence, please? Thank you all. So I would also like to mention the loss of two towering figures for IUCN on the global protected areas community since the last Congress. Dr. Kenton Miller, a former Director General of IUCN and a former Chair of the World Commission on Protected Areas, and Dr. Gerardo Budewski, the first Director General of IUCN and an inspiration to many of us here. They were both great inspirations to me personally. The first award is presented by Sean Wilmore, President of the International Ranger Federation and founder and director of its charitable arm, the Thin Green Line Foundation. Sean, please.
Well, thank you, Julia, for your tremendous support and for the support of all the people standing behind me here to recognise our frontline heroes, the park rangers. We've just honoured the rangers killed in the line of duty, and while we've been at this Congress, I found another 9 rangers killed, one as recently as 2 days ago. And it's great that the world's recognising what's going on, but we need to do far much more to support these brave men and women. Not only do they do anti-poaching work, but the men and women in front of you here do bushfire control, rescues, education. They protect communities where sometimes wildlife tourism is 20% of the whole GDP of a country. These rangers are an inspiration for young people, and you'll hear some of those people today. But right now, I'd like all the other rangers in the audience to please stand up. All the other rangers. Here with us in front of the stage are over 30 countries representing rangers. And I'm very proud to be the president of the International Ranger Federation and the director of its charity arm, the Thin Green Line, getting that support out to the front line. And it's also important to acknowledge our Indigenous brothers and sisters, the original rangers, I call them, and represented here by my Wawa, Mundika Marika. Let's give a round of applause, especially for our Indigenous rangers. I thank Julia and the whole wonderful IUCN WCPA team. I'd also like to thank Patagonia for giving us $10,000 worth of shirts to represent here at the Congress. Well done, Patagonia. Thanks also to PAWA, the New South Wales Ranger Association, for ferrying our rangers back and from airports and to accommodation. And last but not least, a man standing behind me who houses Thin Green Line and IRF at his office at Parks Victoria, and his wonderful Parks Victoria team, Mr. Bill Jackson. Now, we're just about to give you these wonderful award people, but I have to share one story with you from this Congress, a short story, but a beautiful story. There's a ranger from Gabon here that came to meet the rangers. If you're here, stand up. If not, and come up. But this ranger from Gabon came to our Meet the Ranger session. We had 200 rangers there, and he stood up and spoke in French and said, "I'm not sure where to turn. I've had 3 of my fellow rangers and friends killed recently. I've come here in the hope of finding support. And I think and I feel maybe you rangers are my family, but I wonder what message I can take home." And I asked all of the rangers to stand up and show him what kind of family we are. And it was a beautiful moment where everyone just started clapping in his direction. And this is a very emotional thing. This Gabonese ranger started to cry. And he said, "I apologize for crying because it's not manly in my culture, but I'm crying because I can take home a message from this Congress to my fellow rangers. We have found our family." Well done to that Gabonese ranger and to all the rangers present at that meeting. Now for the awards. The first award is named after a proud ambassador of ours, Dr. Jane Goodall. But rather than me talk, let's hear from the lady herself.
Hello, this is Jane Goodall, and my message is to rangers around the world. I've been in Africa for 50 years. I've visited many other countries too, and I know firsthand just the kind of dangers and hardships that rangers around the world are facing, especially those of you out on the front line. And I've met families who lost their breadwinner. I've known the hardship that the family suffers too when somebody's killed in the line of duty. And I've been so shocked to see how so many rangers have very little equipment. Sometimes during times of war, they don't even get their salary, and yet carrying on in the face of these dangers and hardships, and risking sometimes losing their lives because they passionately care to protect the areas that they're responsible for. I have so much admiration for the Rangers. I have so much sympathy with the families struggling to survive after losing a Ranger, one of these brave men. And I'm really thankful to Sean Wilmore for starting the Thin Green Line so that this can take out news of the suffering of the Rangers and the bravery of the Rangers, the courage of the Rangers to people around the world. I hope we can help you more, and my heart goes out to you, my congratulations, and good luck to you. Bye.
So hot off the press or the smartphone this morning, I got a message from Jane saying, could you please add this on my thoughts of the winner and to the Congress. This is a direct message to the Congress. I want to encourage all of you who are present at this World Parks Congress to think of ways in which you can support them and their families. And now it is my honour to announce that the inaugural winner of the Jane Goodall Hope and Inspiration Ranger Award that bears my name is Luigi Epbrecht of Bonaire. Luigi, please. Jane goes on to say, Luigi's a young man who has overcome significant personal hurdles, domestic violence and homelessness. And now, through a junior ranger program, and now a full-time ranger himself, training junior rangers, he gives everything he has to teach young children about the wonders of the natural world around them in Bonaire and about the many ways it is threatened. There is not a more deserving winner at this important time of our human history, a time when the environment all around the world is threatened by our own destructive behaviour. It is desperately important that young people such as Luigi and others understand the problems, a time when there is great need for hope and inspiration to keep us from despair. I applaud you, Luigi, and all young people who are fighting for nature, fighting for animals, and fighting for the future of our planet. Jane Goodall.
Good morning to all. I'm so honored and so humbled receiving this award in the name of Dr. Jane Goodall. I hope someday I can inspire as many people as she does. And as we're all a team trying to make good decisions for a better planet, let's all do it together, because team together, everybody achieves more. Thank you all. Thank you, International Ranger Federation, Thin Green Line, and all the other supports I get from all around the world. And thank you to all the Rangers that are doing a great job, as we are all a family. And I'm very honored to be standing next to all of these people and have support all around the world. Thank you all.
Now it gives me great pleasure to announce to introduce the International Young Conservationist Award, and recognising this time a dual winner, because we could not separate these two inspirational young people. This award is supported by Parks Victoria and IUCN WCPA. So to give the first award, please welcome Dr. Bill Jackson.
Thanks very much, Sean. It gives me a really great pleasure to present the International Young Conservationist Award. This award recognises the outstanding contributions that are made by young people to the conservation of protected areas. Or I'll put that a bit more simply, at the end of each year, the places in which these young conservationists live and work are in a better place, they're better off as a result of their wonderful efforts. As Sean said, this year we have joint winners. We had such fabulous nominations that we couldn't choose between two fantastic ones. I'll announce the first of those and Ernesto will announce the second. The first of the dual winners is Max Jeniz from Tanzania. So Max's tireless work protecting elephants and communities through community-based anti-poaching operations has resulted in the arrest of over 563 people and the seizing of 805 illegal firearms. Max has overseen the training and mentoring of more than 200 rangers, but most importantly, in my view, is Max has won the hearts and minds of the village and farming communities with which he works. Max.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to dedicate this award to my fellow rangers and all who are in front line fighting poaching around the globe. I'm also honored and feel respected from the support we get from the Thin Green Line Foundation and the recognition of the rangers' efforts towards the conservation. Thank you very much. Thank you, Max. And it now gives me my pleasure to introduce Ernesto to introduce the second dual winner. Ernesto.
Thank you very much. It's a real privilege to partner with the International Ranger Federation on recognizing young rangers around the world. And as was previously said, this time we had to give it to two because they were so good that we decided, why should we not give it to two excellent candidates? So it is my great pleasure to now announce the second winner of the Young Ranger Award, Timonga Mzmada from Malawi. Timonga is an ornithologist. Her work has concentrated on collating information on species that are of conservation concern. She found that the endemic yellow-throated apelles has a population of about 10,000 individuals. They continue to prefer evergreen scrub under cedar forest patches and are breeding successfully. She made signs and pictures of endangered birds to help the community learn more about them. She has managed to get optimal results with limited funding. She has managed to encourage and instill the spirit of volunteerism among the locals, and she never loses an opportunity to educate someone. She avoids producing a large document that needs to be read because her approach is meeting face to face. Timonga is a Malawian female working in the field of conservation, something very rare in Malawi. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm very honored to accept this award. I thank you to IRF and to IUCN for this recognition. I really receive it on behalf of all the wonderful and big team of rangers and colleagues that I work with in Malawi to do this work. I want to thank my mom and my husband as well, who have supported me to get into a field that in Malawi is not, maybe people don't think women should go into, but they support me. And I stand here before you a product of bursaries and fellowships and small grants that organizations, some of which are actually here, have given me to be able to learn more and more about birds and have the knowledge that I have, and then I can be able to share it to other Malawians. And hopefully, I pray that next time you will hear that there's 10 or 15 more of us in Malawi. Thank you.
So for the International Ranger Federation Lifetime Achievement Award, it's given to a ranger who's given their utmost over a career. We had such a huge and amazing field to choose from. And in fact, in the scoring system, out of 480 points, there was only 15 points that separated the top 6. This is how impressive these people are. So we gave some special commendations to those top 6 people. Ramesh Kumar Thapa from Nepal, Robert Reed of the UK, Geraldo Ledesma from the Philippines, Stefan Bogner, who I believe is here, from Cambodia, and Gordon Miller from the UK. Can you please give a huge warm applause for these people? But the winner, you will see, has an equally uplifting and inspirational story. In fact, when we told him he had won, he said, "This is my World Cup." This is what Rangers being recognised means to them. So I'm very, very proud to announce that the winner is a good friend of mine who's actually taken me through parts of Congo, through ambushes, is Jean-Pierre Jabogo Marindi of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Jabogo has had a career as a park ranger along eastern Congo, Virunga being one of them. Jabogo has trained rangers, he's fought with rangers, he's had rangers shot and killed next to him, he himself has been shot as well. He's hid in ditches for 24 hours with UN soldiers as bombs dropped around him. But aside from the danger, he's also helped start the Trans-Boundary Project for protection of endangered mountain gorillas across the Congo-Ugandan border. If there's one thing that Jabogo gives the rest of the ranger community, it's hope and inspiration, because he's pushed through some of the biggest hurdles any ranger could ever have. And still, amongst this group today, all these rangers over this last week and the rest of you, he still gives us hope, even though he is working in the most trying circumstances. It is my really great honour now to welcome to the stage Jean-Pierre Jabogo Marindi as the award winner.
Good morning, everybody. As a ranger, a sustainable way of saving rhino and elephant is to discourage marketplace. That's the only way, because still there is demand. The poacher will go at any cost, and the ranger in the field will pay the huge tribute. This is the only way we can do to help a ranger not be killed. Thank you very much.
Some images of Jabogo with the UN in the ditch there, and Jabogo, a very deserving winner. Now, thank you to Julia and the IUCN for the time to recognise rangers. I think, and I hope you'll all agree, it's a very worthwhile thing to do. And at this Congress, we've had so many great comments and offers of support. And I just want to finish by saying that thank you for recognising rangers in a bigger way at this Congress. I myself have witnessed the change, the people talking about rangers, big NGOs, governments, heads of state, princes talking about rangers. But it's not enough to talk about them. We must, after this Congress, act to support rangers. So I want to leave you with this picture of young Collins. And I challenge you, this conservation crowd, to take a good look of Collins and take the goodwill and join with us to ensure when Collins becomes a ranger in Uganda, he does not have to wonder, like our Gabon ranger, who will be his support network. But in 10 years, you can tell Collins yourself, when he stands in front of you on this stage in Russia, that you did something to make his job, his profession, safer, more resourced, and more respected. Thank you very much.
Take a picture. They want to take a picture. Okay. Thank you.
Come on, you guys. Let's have them go. Let's go.
Okay, allez-y. Thank you. Thank you very much. Sean, I really want to congratulate you for your energy and for your passion. Thank you for giving me this bracelet, which is made out of a snare that you found somewhere, and then you've given it to village women to make jewelry out of it. I will wear it and remember this. And I would say that perhaps the only time that I have cried during my tenure at IUCN was when I read the news about these brave rangers. Yes.
Julia?
Yes.
This is the Gabonese ranger.
Oh, voila, the ranger from Gabon. Merci. Thank you. Merci. Merci. Ah, super. Il veut prendre une photo. On va se mettre là. Thank you. Merci. Thank you. So now to present the IUCN WCPA Kenton Miller Award is Natasha Miller, Kenton's daughter. Natasha.
Oh, yes, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm very honored to be here on behalf of my father. And if you'll permit me, I'd like to tell you just quickly a little bit about him. This award is for innovation in protected areas management and recognizes individuals who apply new approaches, tools, and methods to secure and sustain national parks and protected areas. There are countless ways that we can lose our national parks and protected areas, and individuals with bold ideas can save them. This award is named for Dr. Kenton Miller, who is my father, because he has been an innovator in conservation for over 4 decades. In his conservation career, he wrote the first Spanish language textbook on park planning and rural development based on a decade creating national parks in Latin America and the Caribbean. He introduced categories of protected areas, expanded conservation planning management to embrace landscape regions, classified protected areas by biology and geography for the first time, and set up a global system to monitor protected areas, all with the teams he led during 3 terms as WCPA chair. I'd like to invite to come to the stage right now, please, in recognition of Sukianto Lusuli, Angus Budi Utumo, and Yusuf Kagahadan.
would just like to quickly explain their amazing and very important work. They implemented innovative approaches to conservation in Indonesia. Through their vision, commitment, determination, and advocacy and leadership, they've changed national policy and legislation so that lowland forests designated for production and logging can now be managed under license by NGOs and other private organizations for conservation. Working with international NGO partners, this dynamic team has obtained a 95-year lease to conserve and manage 10% of the remaining lowland rainforest in Sumatra and the Haipan rainforest. Through their leadership and positive example, we hope to share the lessons and good practice to enable other practitioners to replicate this approach to ecosystem restoration across Indonesia and beyond. With plans for other forests of hope elsewhere in Asia, a true testimony to the creative determination of this remarkable team.
I'm going to give them to you. Congratulations. Wonderful. Do they want to say anything else? Picture. Bravo! Great.
On behalf of the three of us, allow me to say a few words. All of us feel overwhelmed, proud, but also hand time to receive these recognitions, in particularly because it is named after one of the greatest champions in protected area conservations, Dr. Kenton Miller. There are individuals and organizations that have been supporting us to develop that new innovation in Indonesia. So for those individuals and organizations, we would like to say our sincere appreciations. And also to our colleagues in the IUCN and the World Commission on Protected Areas, we would like to say thank you. And finally, to our government of Indonesia, especially the Ministry of Forestry, who has allowed this innovative approach to be adopted into the policy, into the national legislations, and that which allow now in Indonesia about 500,000 hectares of production forest managed under this new management model. So thank you very much from the three of us.
Thank you very much. Natasha, your father was a great friend, and can you imagine that I dare to try to follow in his footsteps as Director General of IUCN? So finally, I want to invite Dr. Ernesto Ancarlin to present the Fred M. Packard International Parks Merit Award. Ernesto.
Thank you very much. And again, it's a great privilege to be here. First of all, I would like to thank all the WCPA network, all the people who submitted nominations for the Fred M. Packard Award, and of course, all the people who helped us review the nominations. It's being part of that process is really inspirational, and having to select among the many worthwhile people who are part of this large conservation family is really hard, but at the same time, it's a very rewarding experience. So thanks very much to all of us, to all of those who make this possible. This award is given to individuals or organizations or group of individuals that have gone beyond the line of duty. We know that a lot of this work is teamwork, but we always need leadership. And so one of the things that we recognize in the 7 awards this evening, or this morning, sorry, is leadership. And leadership in conservation, leadership, if we are to take forward the promise of Sydney, will be in high demand. So it is a privilege to recognize these 7 awardees. First, rangers and others working at the field level in areas of conflict often find themselves on the front line of conservation battle to protect our precious wildlife ecosystems and natural heritage. Virunga National Park has the highest concentration of biodiversity on the entire African continent, extending from volcanoes to semi-arid savanna, and is home to rare species such as the famous mountain gorillas. The park management team is made up of many people, and on this occasion, we want to bestow this award in recognition of the valor, dedication, commitment, and passion for conservation that the wardens and rangers of Virunga National Park have shown to protect this beautiful and unique conservation area for present and future generations. So please, receiving the award on behalf of the honorees is Monsieur Benoit Kisuki, Director of the Research Institute in Congo for Nature Conservation. Please.
Madame la Présidente, c'est vraiment un honneur pour la République démocratique du Congo, pour l'Institut congolais pour la conservation de la nature et pour le Parc national de Virunga de pouvoir recevoir ce prix du haut de cette tribune du Congrès mondial des parcs à titre de reconnaissance mondiale des efforts déployés par l'Institut congolais pour la conservation de la nature et ses éco-gardes qui préservent les parcs nationaux, les autres aires protégées et en particulier le parc national de Virunga, pratiquement au prix de vies humaines. C'est ici pour l'IUCN de pouvoir remercier tous ses partenaires techniques et les bailleurs de fonds qui l'accompagnent dans ce dur travail. Nous voulons remercier en particulier la Commission mondiale des aires protégées de l'IUCN pour cette marque d'encouragement dans ces congrès. Nous ne voulons pas non plus ne pas reconnaître ici les efforts de notre président, le président Joseph Kabila, et son gouvernement dirigé par le Premier ministre Matata Ponyo, qui ne cesse de nous encourager et de mettre même toutes les institutions de la République, et notamment l'armée, pour pouvoir nous accompagner dans ces dures épreuves. Nous disons aussi merci à vous tous ici dans cette salle, vous qui êtes témoins de ce prix. Merci beaucoup.
Having worked in conservation and related fields for most of the past 30 years, our awardee soon assumed a leadership role in the IUCN specialist networks involving social policy in protected areas. The nexus of these worlds and their concerns has generated some of the most important progress in conservation over the past 15 years. Her work has laid the foundation for a new appraisal of protected areas governance, the analysis of governance failures that affect conservation in communities, and the assertion of protected area government diversity and quality as a way to better understand and revitalize conservation in practice. So please help me welcome Dr. Gracia Borini Feyerabend.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased about this also because this marks 21 years of collaboration with the IUCN. And at the beginning, it became quite clear to me that conservation was about history, both ecological and social, but also about culture, and most of all about politics. And these are not easy subjects. These are filled with complexities. And the challenge is to think clearly about it and try to inject in some way some equity into the equation and to become as effective as possible. So it has been my pride to work around concepts that try to make these complex subjects a little bit more affordable for better results. And those are, as you have heard now from Ernesto, issues of governance in terms of diversity, quality, and vitality, but also the fact that we need to recognize the conservation achievements and the difficulties faced by so many indigenous peoples and local communities throughout the world who are also in the front line of conservation. There are these challenges and there are more ahead. And among those that are ahead, I would like to single the fact of being quite careful about the financial mechanisms that we are putting in place to save nature that may actually turn themselves against nature. But it's a work for all of us together to accomplish. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm summarizing the citations, and I would like to now award to an individual who has made extraordinary contributions to protected areas conservation, both in Canada and around the world. These include growing the size of Canada's protected areas by almost 60% in the past 10 years, and championing new cooperative management models that integrate Aboriginal people's interest in all aspects of park management. He's also spearheading a national drive to connect Canadians with nature, including the creation of Canada's first urban national park. Internationally, under his leadership, Parks Canada made significant contributions to conservation efforts bilaterally and globally. Please welcome Alan Latourelle.
Thank you, Ernesto. I must say I'm a very proud Canadian today. I live in a country that over the past decade has made significant advancement in conservation of protected areas. 60% or so expansion to the system that we're responsible for in Parks Canada. We've embarked and are delivering the largest ecological restoration initiative in the history of our nation, and we are taking concrete and innovative approach to really give young Canadians a future of hope and inspiration by connecting them with nature and supporting them actively. The award that I'm receiving today, I'd like to share first with my family that have been supporting me through the bright days and also the challenging days. The Aboriginal peoples of Canada, my friends, my colleagues of the Aboriginal community that have shown friendship, respect, and partnership, because all of these national parks that we've created are in full collaboration and partnership in the decision-making of Aboriginal people. And that, my friend, is real international leadership. Finally, I'd like to thank the Parks Canada team members, the thousands of men and women that every day inspire me to achieve new heights. In closing, please bring back this message from this Congress. Let's give youth a chance. Merci, Cho.
Thank you very much. Actively involved in protected areas planning and management, not only in his home country, Brazil, launched in the state of São Paulo planning and management initiatives for protected areas, as well as supporting the establishment of the Brazilian system of protected areas. He has been involved with IUCN and WCPA as a volunteer for almost 3 decades. He helped develop a WCPA chapter to Brazil to mobilize WCPA experts. He has been a member of the IUCN Council, and lately, for over a decade, he has devoted his work especially to the Amazon region, starting with leading WWF work in the landmark ARPA Region Protected Areas Program. Please help me welcome Claudio Maretti.
Muchas gracias. I've started my work in the Atlantic forest of Brazil, was told, but then I went on to work with IUCN in West Africa, in Guinea-Bissau, the Bijagos Islands. And then I came back to work in the Amazon, the Brazilian Amazon first, and then the Pan Amazon. And it has been all about partnerships and learning. Nothing is achieved alone. It's been working with local communities and indigenous people, learning from them, respecting their rights and their knowledge, and using that, defining no-go zones. It has been about working with courageous governmental authorities that can accept to go beyond law, not against it, but go beyond law, beyond borders, and accept partnerships, accept support. It's been about working with the protected area staff, that I've been one, but I've been trained others. Others that have been trained by us are now here, showing innovation. It has been about working with all those people that we achieved. So I accept this award as my Nobel Prize, more than a World Cup, and share with you as a call for more commitment and more action. We need at least 30% of biodiversity protection in the Amazon for biodiversity. But we need to stop ecosystem conversion, stop deforestation and rivers conversion. This needs to be done. This needs to be done and the Amazon, with the Amazon as a whole, not country by country, with an integrated vision. And we have that, and we have implemented that through partnerships with local communities and indigenous peoples and the governments. Thank you very much.
A globally recognized leader in wilderness, national park, and large landscape conservation, law, policy, communications, and education. His main achievement has been creating an inspiring vision for national parks and wilderness, and the importance of maintaining the largely intact biological diversity in the face of global challenges such as climate change and the fragmentation of ecosystems. His abiding influence has been his ability to communicate this vision and to engage the public and decision makers in support of large-scale conservation programs, including the Canadian Boreal Initiative and the Yellowstone to Yukon Conservation Initiative, inspiring global leadership in large landscape-scale nature conservation programs. Please welcome Harvey Locke. imagine somebody gives you a prize for being in love with nature. Unbelievable. Thank you. Conservation is a team sport. You are the team. The teams that I've played with most are the Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society, the Yellowstone to Yukon Conservation Initiative, the Wild Foundation, my colleagues at the World Commission on Protected Areas, and then folks on 6 continents, never Antarctica. But this world is full of wonderful people working to save nature. So I have an idea for you. We have the most exciting product in the world. We have the product that the world needs most, which is intact nature. Let's get out and sell it with pride and with enthusiasm. And I suggest that we protect at least half the world in an interconnected way. Thank you.
Thank you. This particular award gives me immense pleasure because one of the greatest things is to recognize people in their own home turf, where sometimes the work is done with love and passion but goes unnoticed. But this is not the case. It has not gone unnoticed, because during his tenure as Director of National Parks in Australia, he made extraordinary contributions to protected areas conservation in Australia and beyond. He oversaw the near doubling of the size of protected areas in Australia National Reserve System, championed Indigenous protected areas, and built strong partnerships and novel cooperative management approaches with the traditional owners. His personal leadership led to the establishment of the National Landscape Partnerships with Tourism Australia. His international leadership includes ensuring protected areas were always front and center in the conventional and biological diversity negotiations. He was instrumental in the development and negotiation of the CBD program of work on protected areas, which is recognized as one of the most successful programs in this important convention. Please welcome Peter Cochran.
I'm very honoured. I'm very proud to represent Australia and its rich natural and cultural heritage and the people who are passionate about conserving it. I'm very proud to be a member of the IUCN family, and I'm honoured to receive this award. I would like to thank the hundreds of people who have challenged and inspired me that I have worked for, with and alongside, park staff, Indigenous elders, Indigenous rangers, the business community, tourism industry, government organisations, non-government organisations, and the research and education community. I'd like to acknowledge all of them and their inspiration and the challenges that they throw up from time to time. Your creativity, passion and energy feeds my optimism that we can and will make a difference to the future of life on this planet. Thank you.
This year we were very privileged to have participants and awardees from all around the world. So it's great to now introduce someone who has been working for the Indonesian government, including as Director of National Parks and Director of Biodiversity Conservation, closely involved in the establishment and management of several leading national parks in Indonesia, including Ujung Kulon National Park, the last home of the rare Javan rhino, an acknowledged rhino expert. He became director of the Yasan Authority and supports specialist rhino protection units, which patrols unit jointly implemented by park rangers and staff. The facility successfully breeds Sumatran rhinos, one out of 124 years in this ancient habitat. He would like to thank the International Ranger Federation, WWF, TCS, and all the continued support that he has been receiving to implement his conservation programs. Please help me welcome Widodo Sukohadi Ramonono.
Thank you, Ernesto. Thank you, IUCN. Thank you, World Park Congress. On behalf of Bapak Widodo, which I start working in Jungkulon in 1979. Actually, his working start in 1964, which is now 50 years. It is good and a happy day for Indonesia. He's the mentor and then he's actually a role model for conservation in Indonesia. Thank you.
Let's move up a little bit, I think. Yeah. Thank you very much. How wonderful. Congratulations to all of you. So much hard work. So now it's the time to present to you the promise of Sydney. To present it, please welcome on stage, this is Sally Barnes, Director of Parks Australia. Sally, where are you? Michael Wright, Deputy Chief Executive of the New South Wales National Parks and Wildlife Service. And Trevor Sandworth, Director of the IUCN World Parks Congress and our Global Protected Areas Program Director. As you can guess, these three represent the three partner organizations that have been working for years and will continue to work together seamlessly. Over to you and the promise of Sydney, please.
Madam Chair, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and friends, I have the honor to introduce the promise of Sydney. Where is it? Oh, there. Yeah. Now, as you all know, the promise of Sydney consists of four components: a vision, which we will discuss today, promises and commitments, so many of which we've been hearing about, and others that are being shown on the screen to my left, the innovative approaches that have come through from the streams and the themes, and all of the inspiring solutions that all of you and colleagues around the world have been putting forward as ways to look forward in terms of addressing some of the problems that we face. And those solutions are going to be held on a web-based platform which UNDP and the Global Environment Facility is helping us establish to take this Congress into the future. Over 6,000 participants from 170 countries met at the IUCN World Parks Congress 2014 in Sydney, Australia. Acknowledging the traditional owners of the land where we met, we celebrated an enormous variety of inspiring ways of addressing the challenges facing the planet through protected area approaches that respect and conserve nature while benefiting human health and prosperity. We recognize that rebalancing the relationship between human society and nature is essential, and that ecosystems and their variety of life fully support our existence, cultural and spiritual identity, our economies and well-being. We celebrate the expansion and improved governance and management of protected and conserved areas around the world, and the leadership and initiatives of so many regions, including the first ever Asia Parks Congress since we last met in Durban in 2003. Sorry, I was speaking.
In particular, we laud the establishment of new marine protected areas, as healthy oceans are critical to life on Earth and must be protected at a much greater scale. We acknowledge the increasing role of Indigenous peoples, community and privately owned areas and territories in reaching biodiversity conservation and societal goals. We welcome the opportunities presented by new communication and other technologies to better understand and engage new constituencies, including young people and the world's rapidly expanding cities. We commend numerous improvements of corporate practice and the many success stories and varied partnerships across sectors for nature and sustainability.
Despite these advances, we recognize that threats to nature, its biological diversity and protected areas are now at the highest level in human history due to a convergence at immense scale of the impacts of human consumption patterns, population growth, and industrial activity. Many protected and conserved areas are at risk or are poorly managed, and many rangers on the front line have sacrificed everything for this cause. This reality must be faced directly, truthfully, and collaboratively. Bold vision and concerted action are required if we are to meet both conservation goals and human aspirations for current and future generations, and there's no time to lose.
We promise to invigorate our efforts to ensure that protected areas do not regress, but rather progress. We will scale up protection in landscapes, wetlands, and seascapes to represent all sites essential for the conservation of nature, especially in the oceans. We will enhance diversity, quality, and vitality in governance and management, including the appropriate recognition and support of areas conserved by Indigenous peoples, local communities, and private entities. We will strive to promote sustainable land uses and eliminate activities and policies that degrade, threaten, or result in extinction or the loss of ecosystems and their biodiversity, including the rampant illegal wildlife trade and the impact of invasive alien species. We will recognise, respect, resource and support our frontline staff to do their often dangerous but always critical work.
As well, in the promise of Sydney, we promise to inspire all people across generations, geography and cultures to experience the wonder of nature through protected areas, to engage their hearts and minds and engender a lifelong association for physical, psychological, ecological and spiritual well-being. We will motivate and engage a new generation of urban and rural communities as an essential investment in the future of sustainability on the planet and in the quality of life of people everywhere. Further, by working in partnership with and recognising the long traditions and knowledge, collective rights and responsibilities of Indigenous people and local communities to the land, water, natural resource and culture, we will seek to redress and remedy past and continuing injustices in accord with international agreements.
We promise to invest in the full sense of the word in nature's solutions, supported by public policy, incentives, tools and safeguards that help to halt biodiversity loss, mitigate and respond to climate change, reduce the risk and impact of disasters, improve food and water security, and promote human health and dignity. We will work to enable protected and conserved areas and their stewards to design and monitor effective, evidence-based and culturally appropriate responses to these challenges, and to provide a compelling case for increased recognition, incentives, capacity, and direct funding.
We will encourage regional learning networks and initiatives that support these aims, and we'll collaborate with new partners to promote sustainable and equitable economies that respect planetary boundaries and social justice. This is our promise of Sydney. And we record the promises and commitments made here in Sydney and invite further promises from people from all walks of life to give life to this vision for the decades ahead. And to close, I should just inform you that this vision of the promise of Sydney will be posted on the website right now in both English, French, and Spanish. And it's there for you to look at and to respond to and to pass on. So with that, join my colleagues in
Thank you.
That's the promise of Sydney.
Thank you very much. Don't go away, please. Let me invite the president of IUCN, Dr. Zhang Xingsheng, to come up to the stage and to formally receive the promise of Sydney with his words. President Zhang Xingsheng.
What a wonderful, really inspiring, and a very fruitful Congress. Together, we work together that makes this Congress such a wonderful, successful one. So I want to thank you all. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of IUCN, I'm very pleased to receive the promise of Sydney. These documents reflect both our collective vision and the numerous excellent, sincere commitments received from our web-based consultation and from the participants you all present here. I want to remind you that the promise of Sydney embodies, in addition to the vision and the commitments, the outcome of the rich deliberations that took place here. The promise of Sydney will remain a live document to which more inputs will be welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, as a president of IUCN, I want to assure you that IUCN's commitment to you is that we will keep a friendly yet a firm watch over the implementation of your commitments and take it into account as we carry out our work, a just world that value and conserve natures. You can also count on us to showcase the promise you made in the implementation of the promise of Sydney at our 2016 World Conservation Congress in Hawaii, United States. We're looking forward to seeing you all. You are all more than welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President Zhang Xingfeng. May I just invite you all now to take the promise of Sydney back to your homes and keep its spirit alive? With that, we have acclaimed and we have received this promise. Now, just to conclude this part of the closing plenary, and there will be a little bit more. I just want to remind you of the close links between culture and biodiversity. First of all, I hope you're going to visit that amazing mural that was painted here. The work was led by our dear colleague Intu, who's a scientist but also an artist, and her students from James Cook University's Program in Development Science. And one side shows the natural world, the other side the human world, and how they're so linked. And I really hope Intu that this amazing mural goes to a very famous museum. I wish I could take it home with me. So now, to conclude this part of our closing session, I want to invite an amazing group here who are with us today. We're going to hear an Australian didgeridoo player, a Hawaiian chanter, a Fijian band, and a Canadian rapper to close this part of the session. Thank you all for being with us, and we'll be back in a few moments. Thank you. Hanau kapo, hanau kumuli boy kaboy kane, hanau boy lele gawahine, hanau habainui guauli, hanau habainui ke. Hanno Hawaii.
If you wish the international jam, everybody in the city better clap their hands. If you wish the international jam, everybody in the house better clap their hands. Come on. If you wish the international jam, everybody in the house better clap their hands. Come on. If you wish the international jam, everybody in the house better clap their hands. Yes, I'm on stage, I'm going crazy. I'm a real representative for Canadians. My ancestors were just here, but now I'm rocking out with Lions and Fijians. Can't you see it? I'm bowling, I'm kicking the floor against the backdrop of some Appalachian. As I'm giving it up, everybody grab this and take in the room. See what I'm saying? Yes, you are on. Yes, someone take it at the city. Congress is how it is rocking and represents forever. Everyone here represents environmentalism, conservation, words that I'm making. This is first time that I'm taking on the top of any day. And every time I spread the message of Congress to everyone, going out to the world right now. I don't have to pause, keep it right now. We're like, cars going down the chimney, but right out there. Listen to the message, say, hell yeah, everybody just clap along to the rap song. It's not Capcom, we just go out and take it to the other countries and tell them we're descended by monkeys, we're part of the wilderness, we're just building it. That's right, we got to start the fire. Everybody feel the power in the message. So we got to get out and test it, and then bring it out to other places. Freestyle, we just making it the basics. I like it up every single second. See, just better get the message. We got to shake it and let it honest. And after this, we're going to spread the promise. When I say promise up, you can say city. Promise up. Promise up. When I say promise up, you can say city. Promise up. Promise up, city. Far and wide, ladies and gentlemen. Spread it far and wide. Make some noise if you have a fantastic look at the World Parks Congress. So, they asked me to write a little grand finale summary of the promise of Sydney and Iraq. So I'm going to ask my first finale backdrop and try to sum things up here. This is a wrap-up. Friends, ministers, delegates, the World Parks Congress is ending. But if there's no commitment to action, then the promise is empty. So look me in the eyes when you make me a promise in Sydney. I promise to give the wilderness my liver, my tonsils, and kidneys. Eventually. It's not yet. Not just private crowd, no Nobel. Besides, I already sacrificed my liver at the Nobel Hotel. And a liver is nothing compared to what we've seen delivered on stages. Australia's trying 1,000 young indigenous rangers. We're at it from Greg Hunt. It's one thing to give us the parks, but the future of conservation lies in indigenous partnerships. They can teach us the value. They can teach us the value of wilderness when it's unharvested. Yes, traditional custodians of the land are the hearts of it. And this is the promise of Sydney. Our commitments are part of it. Quebec just protected 600,000 square kilometers. Their commitments are the best part. We heard from the presidents of Comores and Madagascar. They made commitments, but my French comprehension is lacking a certain savoir-faire. But when I heard them say 7 million hectares, I was there. I was like, Thomas Friedman was there. That's how much I was there. I was here instead of in Brisbane. The IUCN called and the New York Times listened. Whatever happens in Brisbane, that's incidental. Any discussion of economy without accounting for environmental is inconsequential. See, this is the shift in mentality that's currently happening. A global crackdown on wildlife trafficking. It's about action, not just a hall full of 500 posters, but young conservationists like Max Jennings arresting 500 poachers. See, the samurai films of Akira Kurosawa have nothing on the actions of Max and Tomoe Mizumaragawa. So, before we move on to the next conference in Maui, let's acknowledge young women are heroes on the ground in Malawi. See, today's world isn't the same as back in the day. Back in the day, Adrian Storin would have burned Julia Fevre as a witch at the stake. But today, he can transform conservation into Azerbaijan, and they can adapt. All it takes is an 8-second video of a leopard taking a crap. This is the age of collaboration. A Canadian raps with Fijians, celebrating the conservation efforts of French Polynesians, and we go from 8-second videos to 95-year leases like the one received by the Kenton Miller Award-winning Indonesians. These are incredible achievements. We're here to invigorate, to progress instead of regress, and never let an area that's protected settle for less. From the millions of new hectares of the earth protected to the species with a new lease on life, like the Persian leopard, let us never forget, 71% of the planet is ocean, and marine life is suffering the most massive erosion. But the South Africans just tripled their marine protected areas, and when I heard that, I heard music, Stradivarius. And I was filled with pride national when Alan Latourell was celebrated for making Canada a lot more au naturel. See, we're here to inspire, to engage hearts and minds. I'm just the fun guy with the head full of sparkling rhymes and a mouth full of fungi like chanterelles, shiitakes, and pines. But the promise of Sydney is a promise for all times. Welcoming opportunities and lauding marine protected actions, applauding progress and corporate practices, but also acknowledging the threats are still extreme. From terrestrial to marine, the promise of Sydney gives us a vision to build and to keep. Let the planet remain healthy and green long, and let it play on our heartstrings to the backdrop of the Titanic theme song. This conference was a great step forward in promoting unity. Now let's take the promise of Sydney back to our home communities. Thank you. And big up the musicians!
Good.